Next guy up. This is another guy that's been getting a lot of praise. I know this is Jay from Florida's pick right here, so you might want to call in after this. Johnny Davis, guard out of Wisconsin, averaged 19 points, 8 boards for Wisconsin. Number 3 Wisconsin taking on number 14 Colgate this Friday, 9:50 p.m. Eastern Time on TBS. Corey, your thoughts on one Johnny Davis?
Man, I love Johnny Davis. And there's probably not a prospect in the entire draft that jumped higher than Johnny Davis did. Because this is not a kid that was really on the radar as a legitimate prospect coming into the year. You know, he played in the FIBA tournament, so he had some momentum there. But if you go and look at the preseason boards, he wasn't on it, right? And now, you know, he's number 5 on the no ceilings board right now. This is a kid in the Big Ten, dominant, you know, and if you watch him, you can't help but think, man, this kid looks a little bit like Devin Booker. Just smooth, gets to his spots, killer in the mid-range. He's patient, won't let anybody speed him up. 8.2 rebounds a game. He's like 6'4", 6'5". You know, like this kid, he plays hard. You got to go get those boards in the Big Ten. Everything I heard, like, he knows he wasn't supposed to be here. This is not the path that people thought for him. So he's just a dog, right? Like, he knows, I got to have that chip on my shoulder because nobody believed in me, and who knows how long that'll last. You know, I think if you're watching him in the tournament and he doesn't light it up, taking into some consideration that he's a little bit banged up right now, and the load he had to carry for that Wisconsin team, which was outside of him, not very good, and what he did, how he led that team as far as he did in, you know, probably the toughest conference in college basketball this year. Kid is legit, and I think that when you're watching him and you think, how's this dude gonna do in the NBA? I mean, you look at all those scorers at shooting guard right now that are thriving, in Zach LaVine and Devin Booker and guys like that, and he's up next in that regard. So big fan of Johnny Davis, his mentality, the way he approached the game, and just how he always feels like he's impacting it. You're never not going to feel him. Shows up in big moments. 37 against Jaden Ivey, and Purdue. You know, like he's a baller.
Yeah. The Purdue game was pretty impressive. I actually watched that one against Jaden Ivey. So yeah, looks like he's got some clutch chops on him, man. How about weaknesses? You know, areas of his game that you feel like aren't as strong right now.
Yeah, he's not like a knockdown 3-point shooter. I think he's probably at like 33, 34%. And I think that's the one concern that people have with him as a scorer, is that when you got to stretch that out to NBA range and teams start maybe going under screens a little bit more often, he doesn't have that like explosiveness like a Jaden Ivey does. You know, what is he going to be able to make teams pay? And I think that he's a good enough shooter that teams respect him, and he'll be able to, with time, a couple of years develop, he'll turn into a good enough shooter that it won't be a worry. But coming in, it's definitely going to be something that, you know, I think that you should be a little bit concerned about.
Or do you think that Davis is a guy that once you draft him, he's going to make the impact on that team his first year as a rookie? Or do you think this is going to be a guy that's going to take some time to transition to the NBA?
I think he could make an impact his first year, but I think it all depends on the situation and team context he goes to. Like, he's not going to be a franchise-altering player where you draft him and you go from the lottery to the playoffs necessarily. But if you have a team that, you know, maybe you jump up in the lottery, you got a little lucky, right? You're at the back end and you make that jump. He's a piece that could kind of propel you and take you to that next level. And he could have a couple of games like in a playoff series where you're like, all right, I see it with this kid. Like, I know what he's going to be like in the future. So, I don't think he's, you know, you're getting like Derrick Rose where you know, like this franchise is ready to go from here. He's not that level of prospect, but he's definitely somebody that could help a team that's already kind of good get to that next level.
Corey, how would Johnny Davis rank when you look at this past year's draft? You look at some of these guards with James Bouknight and, you know, and Mitchell and some of the guards that went high. You know, this past draft was known as a very deep draft, one of the best drafts in, you know, recent years. We'll see. Where would Johnny Davis rank among some of the last year's guards, you know, this year?
He's not the type of prospect on the level of Jalen Green, but I do think that he would have gone above James Bouknight. So I think you're probably looking at him he might have been the pick for Sacramento at 9. You know, like he might have been in that range. So he's somewhere in the middle, I think, between where Bouknight was and Jalen Green was. Because again, he doesn't have that crazy athleticism, that vertical pop. He's a killer that is going to do everything with his floor game, and his game's a little bit more mature than James Bouknight. You know, Bouknight was a little chucky. His percentages weren't that great, and that didn't necessarily affect winning the same way Johnny Davis has. So I think NBA teams, when you get him in an interview setting, would just like fall in love with Johnny Davis in a way that you wouldn't with a guy like Bouknight necessarily. But he's definitely somewhere in between those two prospects as far as where he'd have gone in that last draft.
Okay.
He played point guard on the Knicks? Because I think the questions for him is going to be, you know, at his size, you know, in relation to the Knicks. Can he be a guy that, you know, the Knicks draft? Can he start for the Knicks and be that one? Now, I know point guard in today's era is a little bit different how you would evaluate a point guard, but could he play that position for this team?
So here's what I'll say. If you're expecting him to play the point guard position offensively and run the offense as a playmaker, no. But I do think that if you're projecting RJ Barrett the way I think, like the trajectory he's on, I think he's going to continue to get more ball handling duties as his career goes on. You're going to see more of those playmaking flashes that you saw, you know, when RJ was really young. And if you're saying, can Johnny Davis guard some of these point guards, play next to like Quentin Grimes and RJ in the backcourt, I think, yes, the fit offensively works if you're projecting RJ to be that main creator, ball handler type. If you're expecting Johnny Davis to do it, he doesn't have the playmaking chops right now. You know, it's going to take him a few years until he gets to that, like, 4 or 5 Devin Booker, Zach LaVine. Like, it takes those kind of guards 4 or 5 years to really get the playmaking chops done, because he's not a natural playmaker. He's shown some flashes, but they're flashes. He's not ready to take on a full time, and especially in New York, he taking on that responsibility. You know how hungry. I mean, shoot, I was listening to the show beforehand. You know how hungry New Yorkers are for a real floor general point guard, lock in that position. This is the guy going forward. Not we're trading for an older guy who can come make an impact, but who knows how long he's going to be here. Johnny Davis isn't that guy, and unfortunately, I don't think that guy is in this draft.